first battle wagon lined up with 6 torpedoes. And then what he's going to do is fire all 6, turn our ass to it, fire forward, and run like hell. And go deep, see? Well, this plane spotted us, so a destroyer came out. 35 knots, and we were going full. Fired 3 torpedoes. Right straight like that, down the throat, as they call it. So if he goes this way, he's going to get this one. He goes this way, he's going to get this one right on. We hit him. We went 90 feet, and she blew up like a... Oh, man, she blew up, and it was just like raining on a hull. A tin roof, you hear that? Pitter, pitter, pitter. That's what it sounded like. We went down, we lost control. I forgot the depth we went down, but it took a hell of a time, and they kicked the living hell out of us.
See, when you prepare for a depth charge attack, anything that was running by machinery was shut off, okay? You had no ventilation. The sweat would run off you.
To me, depth charging is like sitting in a 44-gallon drum and somebody getting a nice big sledgehammer and hitting the side. The noise resounds right the way through.
Everybody was scared because we thought we wasn't going to make it back. But we made it back. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here today.
From these waters off the lonely coast of Western Australia, a secretive and deadly struggle was waged. From a secret base in Fremantle, a campaign was conducted that would alter the course of the Second World War and change the lives of an isolated community. This is the story of the secret fleets.
Fremantle submarine base is one of the best kept secrets of the war. In the post-war period, it's sunk back into oblivion practically. It's during the war, it must have been, people must have known it was there. The secrecy provisions meant that people didn't talk about what happened anyway.
There are a number of reasons why the Fremantle submarine base remained a virtual secret for 50 years. The most obvious and compelling was Fremantle's geographical position. In the late 1930s, the state of Western Australia was an isolated and therefore insulated community. Western Australia looked to London rather than Canberra as the seat for learning, wisdom and guidance. After only 20 years of peace, Australia found itself involved in another deadly conflict.
I remember the day that war was declared in September 1939, which was absolutely ghastly, that sudden feeling that everything that had meant security and happy family living had suddenly, utterly shattered.
When the war came, the start of the war came, the first ones that naturally went to the war were the ones out of work, because it was, it was a trip overseas, and that was the attitude to it. Everybody wanted to go and, climb aboard the first boat that left Fremantle. Then I think after that it was the disgruntled married men that were having an argument with Mum, and they climbed up the other side of the boat and they went. Nobody seemed to feel that they were going over there and not coming back. It was a trip away, and a good way to have a holiday.
The departure of such a large number of young men had an immediate impact.
Women took over men's jobs all over the state, all over the country. They did the postman's job, the baker's job, the milkman's job. They helped on farms.
We girls were aged from 18 to 23, and we had to do a lot of the work. Father was still there, but we had to do a lot of the outside work because there just wasn't anybody else to do it.
I used to work on a machine that made the final points on the bullets, and then I used to work on an examining table, examining them, pitching out the bad ones.
They completely took over men's jobs to release men for the services and for the front.
The first 2 years of the war went badly for the Allies.
There were lists in the paper each day of those who'd been killed, those who'd been taken prisoner of war, those missing. And when some had been taken prisoner of war, it was quite a long time before news came through from them for their families, but we knew a lot of them. So, yes, they were very troubled times, but then if you compare that with the time of the Japanese war, it came a whole lot closer.
The Japanese launched their Pacific campaign with lightning speed. Within a day of crippling most of the US Pacific Fleet in Pearl Harbor, they had invaded Malaya and sent devastating air attacks against American bases in the Philippines. Little more than 2 months later, Singapore, the supposedly impregnable symbol of the British Empire, fell to the advancing Japanese. 17,000 Australian servicemen and women were taken prisoner.
Singapore fell, and that was just devastating. That was really devastating, even to the likes of me, because you'd known so many of the boys that went up there, and that was really frightening.
By the end of February 1942, most of the Philippines were under enemy occupation, and attacks upon Java and Sumatra had begun. Meanwhile, the submarines of the US Asiatic Fleet and a handful of Dutch submarines were in full flight from the Japanese juggernaut. With uncanny good fortune, they seemed to remain one step ahead of many of the air raids.
Both the American and Dutch submarines were very soon in a position where they couldn't stay up in the islands. Java became untenable, and that was when they came to Western Australia.
We were ordered to go to Exmouth, got the charts out, looked at them. Across the entrance to the Gulf, there was a dotted line. On the inside of that dotted line, in big letters, unexplored. So we didn't know what we were getting into. And fortunately, when we got there, the tender Holland had been there and was inside the dotted line, so we knew that it must be all right for us to go in there.
With the bombing of Darwin, Broome and Wyndham, Western Australians felt acutely vulnerable.